So I've never been to Bali before. My husband, his brother lives there, and we're going very soon. So if you're a Facebook friend, I'll download some pickies and I'll bring this camera thing so maybe I can get some shots. But I'm a little bit anxious because I've promised myself on the way over, because you've got time to read. I purposely haven't ordered any new books of other inspirational people that are trudging the road to happy destiny and de-bullshitting themselves and writing and learning and opening the libraries of their heart on the page. I've actually committed to going back and rereading my first two books. The first one, I think I mentioned to you, I wrote A Helping Hand with Life. I wrote that in 1995. Well, I started putting it together in 1995. It came out in 2000. It became a top 10 bestseller. And then the second, but the relationship with the boy's dad had come to a close, and I'd just gotten sober, and the severing of the umbilical cord to the biological tribe, it all happened, and those books cost me the tribe. The second one, I got a legal letter from some of my biological tribe members, basically saying they wanted all my books off shelves around Australia. I'd just been nominated, I just won an Australian of the Year award and a Pride of Australia medal and Volunteer of the Year award and Award of Distinction for Services to Humanity from the Australian Medical Association. I'm not a university person. I left school before I was 15. I didn't get a Year 10 certificate, but my work, in emotional fitness, had started to win awards and get some recognition. And I remember on the Emotional Fitness Foundation, we had an amazing lawyer, Free Hills Lawyers, did some great pro bono work for us when we were federally funded. And I remember this amazing man that was on our board. He said, "Oh, please let me take this case, Cynthia, because there's nothing you've written in your books that hasn't been for the betterment of other people, and I would love them to try and get your books off of bookshelves." Anyway, what it came down to was these people in my biological tribe basically wanted mediation so that I would agree to never write again. And as long as I agreed to never write again, I could come back into the fold. And I basically said that's not an available option. I can't be true to myself and not write. But I will absolutely attempt with this third book to not, I'm just going to talk in generalities. If you've read my first or second book, you know the story. But, the last thing I want to do is harm anybody. But, the reality is that those first two books severed some relationships. And I remember with my first book, I would take chapters to my therapy sessions just to check I was being responsible. And I remember my therapist saying, Cynthia, and the reason I wrote the first book was because, I was working on doing some work around the pedophile that lived next door, and I grew up in Adelaide, and I remember finding out he was still alive. I phoned him and then wanting to try and take him to court because I wasn't the only little girl in the neighbourhood that he babysat. And then finding out that there was a law that crimes before a certain date, which is obviously when my offences happened, couldn't be trialled in South Australia. And anyway, long story short, I remember getting really upset with my therapist and saying, what if I got to do something? There could be little girls that this man is still babysitting and violating. And my therapist said to me then, "Cynthia, you like to write. Why don't you write a book to all the little girls around the country? And that would be a way of helping." And that's the reason I wrote. I got a fire in my heart, and I thought that's what I'll do. And I wrote little cartoon characters, and when I start to reread it, I'll show you bits and pieces. And what I've done is I've since bought the reversion rights from my publishing house for that book, and I self-publish them now. And my second book, you can still get around the country, but I find I'm finding an increased reluctance to pick them up and read them because I've sort of archived those books in my heart's library because I associate them with so much loss and so much confusion, because I really did sort of naively think that if I just tell the truth, everything will be okay. And the irony is everything was okay. Everything is okay with me and my boys and this beautiful new life and this beautiful new man I'm married to, but it was a big price to pay. And would I do it all again? Yeah, I would. Maybe a little differently, but I would still have written those books.